Welcome to Replayable, where we go into depth on our favorite tabletop games that keep us coming back again and again. I'm the start player, Todd, and today I'm joined by Al and Paul. For our 40th episode, we'll be exploring the Galapagos Islands and discovering new species in Darwin's Journey. It was designed by Simone Luciani and Nestori Mangone with artwork by Paolo Voto. It was released by Thundergriff Games in 2023. All right, which seals do you think you guys are going to get this round?
Probably yellow.
I'm just trying to figure out why that bird's beak is so darn long.
Darwin's Journey is a worker placement / set collection / contract fulfillment / point-to-point movement game where players follow Charles Darwin's voyage to the Galapagos Islands. Each player takes on the role of an explorer, studying wildlife, earning seals, improving their assistance, and, well, doing all sorts of stuff to gain scientific knowledge. The game ends after 5 rounds, and the player with the most points wins, celebrating their contributions to science. So this game right now is pretty popular, right? It's ranked number 108 overall on Board Game Geek as of the date of this recording. What is it that resonates with you? Why do you think that this game is doing so well? Paul?
For me, it checks 2 very important boxes. One being path dependency, which is something I always gravitate towards in games. And 2, it took me a few plays to figure this out, but I feel like all of the mechanisms, even though they are diverse and many, really intermingle together and interlock, and what comes through is a well-designed way.
Yeah, that's no joke. Al, what do you think?
I think for me, most games that I like the most has a lot of good decision making. There's questions that you have to answer for yourself, and this game is just full of questions. Do I do this? Do I do that? How do I make this happen? It's just a lot of decision making, and they're good choices. You're not forced to do one thing or another, but coming up with the optimal solution is something only Paul can do.
Right? I think, Paul, you really hit the nail on the head when you talk about there are a lot of different mechanisms, and yet they are all interwoven.
Yeah, the first couple plays can be overwhelming for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It really can be. For example, the very first thing that you do, and this starts charting your path, is you draft your assistants. The assistants will have different requirements, or they'll provide a different colored seal. And when we say seals, we don't mean arc seals. We mean wax seals that give you the ability to choose certain actions. And then they also offer bonuses once you complete their prerequisites. What are the things that you prioritize when making that first crewman selection?
I am still trying to figure out what I want to focus on. I think I prefer to find one crewman benefit that I absolutely want to achieve. And if I have found one early on, great. If I have to wait, then I'll keep looking. But after that, my primary objective is to get at least 3 different colored crewman cards, because that gives me the most flexibility during the first go around.
Right. Al? What are your thoughts on that initial draft?
I mean, I believe it's the same thing. I first look at the, what is the bonus that you get? And then I think you need to kind of spread out what the crew can do. Sometimes you get stuck with 2 crew that can do one thing, but ideally you'd want to have a crew that can go to explore and have a crew that can grab some waxes. I don't use seal. I call them waxes.
Okay.
But just to be clear what I'm saying there. But yeah, all 3 different colors is kind of where I go, but it's always focused on that bonus first.
Interesting.
How many colors? There's 4, right?
There's 4 colors, but you only get 3 crew, right?
True.
And you start with 1 purple.
You can go anywhere.
I will say, I think my favorite crewman ability is the one that copies another crewman.
Yes, I agree.
Correct.
So one of the things that I like to take into consideration, first of all, I agree with the diversity of colors. I like, if possible, I try to get draft assistants that have different colored seals from each other. But then the next thing is every assistant has a requirement of 5 seals to reach their maximum potential. I often now am looking at the market, the upcoming market for seal colors, to see what's the likelihood that I'm going to even be able to grab seals to complete those right away. Because in the last couple of games we've played, it always seems like there's a dearth in at least one color.
True.
Right? Where maybe there are only 2 red seals in the entire market this round, and someone goes through, I'm not going to say it was me, and takes them both.
That is especially true in a 4-player game.
Yeah.
You can get in a position where you can never get the seal you want, and you have to just take a purple somehow.
Right. And I think this goes and ties back to, here we are talking about the starting draft, and already we're talking about how even the starting draft is tied to and interwoven with a mechanic in the game. And I think that pattern just keeps reasserting itself.
Yes, very true. Very true. So I have come to realize that sometimes it's too much to try and complete all 3 of my crewmen. So I just try to focus on only one. And if I get to complete all 3, hey, that's great. But I really focus on just making sure I can get the bonus from the best crewman I'm able to draft.
Okay. At certain player accounts, the actions you're going to take are tied together in a journal. And if for example, if I take walking or exploration, then that is tied usually to navigation, right? But at a 4-player game, they're on separate pages. Which one of those do you think is more important?
Exploration, hands
Easily,
down.
hands down, exploration of those 2.
Okay, and I think that's fascinating. Why?
Because of, I'm sure we're going to talk about this later, but the chaining of actions that you can achieve when exploring. Exploring to certain spaces allows you to immediately take another turn. And there are other things you can do that would then allow you to explore again and then take another turn. And just, so some of our very first plays, we would say, are you still taking the same turn?
Well, yeah, I mean, and we definitely say that about you. You do a great job of finding the ways of chaining actions together in this game. And it took me several games to start, osmosing that capability. But what I find interesting about you saying exploration hands down, I'm going to agree that it is important, but is it important off the bat? Because if I do navigation and I get to the second island, I can start doing exploration and reaping the benefits while you all are trying to catch up from a navigation standpoint.
Right, and you have to in a 4-player game, especially if 2 people race off to explore the first island. I think the other 2 people have to say, "Okay, I'm just going to wait and explore the second one."
Right?
Because the being first benefit, not only do you get points, but you get cheaper campsites. You get first to research and probably deliver to the museum. It compounds. It's something that snowballs, and the only way to get ahead is to leapfrog, as in going to a new island.
Right. And already we're starting to see about how other tracks are going to be influenced, right? So you mentioned campsites, you mentioned delivering specimens to the museum. I mean, those are 2 tracks that we may get to. So Al, what do you think about the importance of exploration and staying with the pack?
So I think you guys kind of put your finger on it there there is some benefit of being in a crowded exploring a crowded island, because you do get to jump over people. So there can be some advantage to more than 2 people being on an island. They can get to places faster. I mean, one of the discussions that I'm sure we'll probably hit on a little deeper later is how big is an advantage of going first is it versus going second or going last? I think going second is actually stronger than going first. But going last has its challenges. If you run ahead to the second island and are able to be the only person down there, then you've got a lot of power. So I think this goes towards your overall strategy as it's fed to you, because, like so many other games, whatever strategy you had at the beginning is going to change quickly by someone tokening you out.
That's another thing I love and search for in games.
Exactly.
And this has that in spades.
Tokening.
Yeah.
Tokening?
Massive amounts of tokening.
Player interruption, I'll call
we're
it.
We're not just playing solitaire together. This is very interactive. I was going to do this, but of course Paul did it first, and I was going to do that, but Todd did that. So now I have to do something else. I have plenty of options to do, but what I wanted to do first isn't available to me. So I have to make new strategies, or tactics, I should say. It's more tactical.
Right. I totally agree. Our last game, I remember the 3 of you jumped out on the first island and you were leapfrogging each other. And I didn't try to hang with you on that first round. And then the second round, you guys were gone. So I had just given up on trying to get onto that first island and just move on to the second, which was interesting. But then the next thing that started kicking in were these campsites. So on your player board, on top of all of the different tracks and bonus option spaces you have for completing objectives, in the lower right-hand corner, you have piles of stamps or postcards, or letters, whatever you want to call them. But you also have tents. And when you get to a campsite spot on an island, you can claim a spot and place one of these tents, which opens up powers or bonuses on your board once you start working your way through those. Again, all of this stuff is interwoven. Here's the question I have for you guys. Are you selective with your campsite choices where you want to erect your tents?
Absolutely not.
Or are you just like, first one I can get, I'm trying to clear off all the tents off my board?
100%. I think the only way to win this game is to play most of your campsites and empty most of your letters. If you come to the final round of the game and you're still on like one campsite out and one stack of letters empty, I don't think there's any way to win.
Right. Well, we haven't figured that out yet. There may be. It just hasn't occurred to us yet.
Just like I said before, the chaining that can happen by placing campsites and mailing letters can really blast you ahead of everybody else.
Right. The reason I ask about that being selective is one of the bonuses on the player board for achieving an objective is to repeat the benefit of a campsite that you have.
Right.
And later in the game, that might just be points, because like on the third island, some of those campsites give you like 8 points or whatever it is. And so you could just say, you know what, I'm going to satisfy an objective and I'm going to claim that and I'm going to take another 8 points. But I can only do that if I have kept a tent and saved it to be able to use that pattern.
Certainly. I strongly believe that the best campsite is the one that lets you mail 2 letters if you can get it in the first round.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
Then you repeat that with your first silver objective completed, and it's rocket fuel for your game.
See, now I wish I had heard all of this before we played our last game.
And I think Al agrees with me, and that's why he said going first is actually not that great, because there's no way for you to reach that campsite if you are player one.
Well, I mean, that's exactly why I feel that it's better to go second, because going first gives you that fossil, but is that as big as getting rid of that first tent? I would say getting rid of that first tent is far and away the most important thing you can do.
Interesting. So it's not going first and having your choice of the market of waxes.
The specimen, yeah.
No, not the specimens, the seals. Doing the academy action.
No, I would never take the seal action first unless there was only one red seal available, something weird like that. I think getting a single seal is too weak of an action.
Okay.
Yeah, I also agree. I think getting a seal is important. Getting an only seal that's available is probably more critical. Whether if there's only one green or one red, I would say that's more of a direction to go. But dumping that first tent, I think, is really key.
Okay. And when we talk about getting rid of the first tent, so that especially on the campsite that allows you to place 2 letters, so that's the correspondence action, there's this weird gambling mechanism, it almost feels like, in the center of the main game board, where you have the option of getting navigation bonuses, exploration bonuses, or just plain money. And what you're using to put your bid in on each of those are these letters. Right?
Yeah, there's also points and research available.
For letters?
Yeah,
it's
random.
So what you're talking about is the first game setup, but there are 3 additional tiles, and you randomly select from those when you set up after your first play.
Oh, okay. I mean, and we've played this several times. I don't know, have we ever used those?
Yes, for sure we've used the tile that's explore and sail.
Okay.
We've also used the tile that's explore only, sail only, money only. Then there's also a tile that's points, there's a tile that's research, and then there's a tile that's Darwin chit plus money.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, the one tile I think Dave was trying to figure out whether he could shoot himself ahead by always getting the extra points every turn. But
since nobody else wanted it early game, yeah.
But it ended up only being like 20 points, and it didn't seem like it was that big of a deal.
Which on the surface, 20 points sounds like a lot, but it can be made less important depending on how far people are getting on the TOE track, which is the theory of evolution track.
Diaries?
Yes. I call it the research track, but yeah, the theory of evolution track that you multiply by the museum completeness at the end of the game.
Correct. If you get high enough multiplier on the theory of evolution or the TOE track, then suddenly the 20 points. Right.
Right. And the 20 points for letters is basically at least 5 moves that you could have used for something else.
Also true.
I mean, it brings it back full circle to what Todd said about gambling, because I think Dave was taking a gamble. He's like, maybe I can get 5 payouts of this tile with only 2 actions if you guys never go to it.
Right.
That did not happen. But that was his gamble.
Right. So we've talked about exploration. We haven't really talked about the academy action. That's the one where you get the seals. But the idea there is that you take that action, you are able to acquire. Sometimes you have to pay depending on the market, which can be mitigated by getting an objective. This is just all those interweavings. Seals that you're adding to your assistants. And the more powerful your assistants get, the different actions that open up. Yeah, the more educated they get. Sure, the more experience they have, the more powerful actions open up. So like getting that first red seal out of the market, especially if there's only one cheap one, I think it's actually pretty good, because if you have an assistant that has one to start with, now you can take this 2 seal option, which allows you to take 2, right? So you said one is too weak?
In my opinion, yeah.
So does that mean you're using your 1 purple, not seal, but the 1 purple wild tile that you have in conjunction with a red assistant in order to...
If I have the opportunity, actually, I forgot there is a letters tile that gives you a seal, a wax seal at the end of each turn if you have enough letters delivered there. But I prefer to take the academy action when I'm going to get at least 2 seals out of it. Okay. So either I have a guy who's already at a silver laureate, or I buy a lens, or I use somebody else's lens.
Right. So do you want to explain what silver laureate means?
Oh, yeah. Once you have gotten enough education, I believe it's a total of 4 wax seals, then you get awarded the Silver Laureate, which basically upgrades every journal/diary action that they take with a bonus. In the case of the Academy, the bonus is you get to purchase an extra seal for one of your crewmen. And then if you get all the way to 6 seals on a single crewman, you get a Gold Laureate, which gives you another additional bonus for each of your actions.
Right.
So one of the major goals of this game early on, in my opinion, is to get a single crewman up to that Silver Laureate.
Right. I agree. And for the correspondence action with those letters, the Silver Laureate allows you to place an extra letter. The Gold distinction allows you to split the letters you place into multiple areas, which is also pretty cool.
Correct.
So do you think that getting a Gold Laureate for the purposes of correspondence placing is an important goal, or is it just...
No.
Depends. No. Okay.
The Gold Laureate bonus for exploring is far too strong. So if I have a Gold Laureate, I am 90% of the time, maybe more, sending them to exploration.
Okay. And do you want to explain the bonuses to our listeners?
The Gold Laureate bonus on exploring and navigating is that you get to perform one of the space actions that you passed over during your move. So you get to do 2 actions with a single exploration or sailing.
Right. So in our last game, I got a Gold Laureate Navigator, which ended up being nice at the end of the game because there are a lot of point scoring spaces on the navigation track. And it allowed me to say, okay, I'm going to move my ship here and then take 2 actions. So I agree that getting a Gold Laureate in exploration, probably more so than navigation, but even on navigation, it was good. All right, let's talk about lenses, because those are crazy. So lenses are the opportunity to add new or to unlock actions that are on the board. And I don't want to say they're new. They are known from the beginning of the game, but then you get to place your lens on that action and you get a little rent for someone taking the action of your lens. But it's how you can unlock different actions, and they have their own seal requirements. What are your thoughts about lenses? How important are they to incorporate into your strategy?
For me, I think the lenses is one of the critical moves. Like for the earlier example we talked where somebody goes first and they grab that first fossil on the first island, in order to get to dump your camp, you have to create a lens to travel the 3 to get up there, which means that's one of the first lenses you would open up is the second in the Explorer, which shows how important it is. I mean, you're going to end up being opening up the waxes fairly quickly as well, and then depending on what the letters are, you're going to open the letters up. The navigations for us seem to be kind of an afterthought as far as opening the second slot.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have the second row of books. There's a book
Mm-hmm.
below.
Yeah, the special journal.
Right, the special journal, that's kind of a hit and miss sort of thing, in my opinion. I don't see it get used very often, once or twice a game per person, if that. So I don't think the lenses are as important, but it's good. But in order to put a lens out there and not have to pay money to do an Explorer as a second action,
Mm-hmm.
$4, I think that lens is probably the second most important thing in the first game. First
lenses
island.
are why you want
My opinion
to get a bunch of money,
Right.
You have ways of mitigating the cost to go take actions everywhere else, but not lenses. Lenses require you to be loaded with your pockets full. And I think for good reason. This is one of my favorite parts about the game because the players get to choose what actions are available as the game goes on. And I especially like the special action journal because in the first turn, I look and see if there is a special action that I want to take multiple times this game. And if so, I will go out of my way to collect wax seals for that action.
Right.
I mean, even in the draft, I
Absolutely.
will be weighted on the crew card I take if it matches a special action I really like. I especially like the gain wild purple seal special action.
Sure.
Wild Seal is good, yeah.
And so I think the lenses are a quintessential part of this game.
I agree that they encourage you to have a lot of money. It's also, I think, the only point in the game where money can be directly translated to an action, especially one for which you are not yet qualified. So when you buy the seal, not only do you put your lens marker on it, when you buy the lens, not only do you put your marker on it, you get to take that action. So I can open up an action that I don't have a crewman who's capable of taking it, but I can still execute that action once.
Yeah, for example, the 2 green, 2 blue to explore and move your ship.
Right. Exactly. And that's the only time that through the purchasing of a lens where you can do that with money. After that, you're going to have a crewman with the right seals to be able to claim that action or to take that action. Let's talk about researching and delivering specimens. So all the things we've talked about while you're exploring the island, and in a couple instances, even during navigation, you're going to acquire a sample specimen that you can then turn into the museum. And if you are the first person to turn in a specimen in a row, so if you're the first person to turn in, say, a bird, you can take the $1 bounty at the end of the row. When you turn that in, there's this matrix calculation that happens based on the row and column and how many specimens have been turned in on each that give you either $1 or for each one space that is non-occupied, or a progress point along the theory of evolution track if there is a specimen in that column, let's say. What are your thoughts about when to drop stuff off at the museum, and how important is it to prioritize getting there ahead of another player who may have just acquired the same specimen?
I mean, you just answered your own question.
Did I? I mean, I don't know.
I think he's still bitter about that.
You can hold your specimen and wait around until somebody else gets the same exact specimen, and then you're like, oh no! I got to get to the museum first.
So are you do you wait until it happens, or is it something that you do early? That's where I'm really trying to get to.
I tend to wait. I think there's 2 reasons to take a specimen to the museum. 1, you need money.
Right.
And 2, either somebody else picked up the same specimen, or they're going to go first next turn and they have an opportunity to pick up the same specimen and get 2 turns in a row before you get to go next.
Ah, okay.
In both of those cases, I will deliver because I don't want to lose out on the 6. You get 6 things when you go to the museum between money and theory of evolution steps, and it's very much worthwhile.
Okay. So you are definitely taking that into account when your specimen is being threatened as far as being able to be turned in. What about being able to pay $3 to deliver a second specimen? Is that ever something that you prioritize or have done?
Yes. For me, I think that if you're going to go there, you want to deliver both of them. I mean, that's a strong move. As Paul was just saying, you get 6 things. You can leverage that if you have 2 of them that are in like the same row to, get money and then get more diary movements. Or you can go in separate locations and get that bonus 1 at the beginning or the bonus diary move at the end. So I think the money, spending the $3 is worth it to keep an extra crewman or an extra turn that pass.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think the $3 is absolutely worth using.
Right, because you only have
for the extra turn.
You only have 20 actions in this game unless you buy a 5th worker.
Right.
So that is the rarest resource. The scarcest resource is the number of actions you have.
Interesting. Makes sense. So basically spending $3 to get a second action as far as turning in a specimen.
Right, because that $3 you spent might make you the $3 back, plus get you 3 Theory of Evolution steps.
Right. So with all of these different tracks that are all interwoven between the laureates that you get from doing the academy action, the exploration, the navigation, correspondence, delivering stuff to the museum or researching a museum specimen, how intuitive do you think this game is?
I think it's pretty intuitive after 5 plays.
Yeah, that sounds like one of those how do you weight this game? Because
we'll
it's not intuitive. It's just not intuitive at all.
Right?
It took a while to internalize it. And yeah, when I'm not playing on Board Game Arena, when I'm playing in real life, I still make mistakes.
Well, you still win, so that's okay. Does it feel like the game has different viable strategies, or do you feel there is an optimal path that you try to follow each time?
What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, what do you think?
I haven't figured this game out, so I have tried different things. They haven't worked, so I think it feels like I'm either making big mistakes or I have yet to find the golden path.
So I think the optimal strategy is complete at least 1 crew card, play most of your tents, and empty most of your letter stacks.
Mm-hmm.
But that is, in my opinion, very fluid and flexible as far as strategies go.
Okay. How about you, Al?
I think if you ignore your tents, you're missing out on great combinations. I think if you ignore your letters, you're missing out on great combinations. To me, it's almost like you have to kind of like engineer all of your different things together so that when you place a tent and then you can do an extra letter and the letters are gone, then you can do an extra move and you drop another tent and sometimes you get that perfect storm. And it's one of the best feelings that I've had in a game when you score one of those combos.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's, I think I can do this, and it doesn't, and you're like very sad. Sad trombone, right?
Oh!
Yeah. For me, that happens when part of my plan for the round incorporates using a specific objective and getting that objective bonus. And then, Al, you come in and swipe that objective off the stack.
I only did that once or twice, or maybe 3 times.
So with that, let's move on to the prompts. Weight and complexity is the first one on Board Game Geek's scale of 1 to 5. No decimals, please. How would you rate the complexity of Darwin's Journey? Al?
I'm going to sit at a 4. I mean, the game doesn't look like it's that heavy weight, but trying to get your ability to do combos or recognizing the combos, and then all of the choices, there's just a lot of choices that you can make, and which ones you do make this a fairly heavy game. It's not a chunky game by any stretch of the imagination, but the complexity is there just because there's so many great choices to make, and usually I make the wrong ones.
Right. I agree.
I'm a 4.
Okay. And Paul, how do you have it rated?
Yeah, I really tried to talk myself into giving it a 3, but it's a 4.
Okay. Talk about that.
After enough plays, I feel like the game just flows and I can play against the players instead of trying to wrestle with the game. That's why I wanted to give it a 3. But, ultimately, the hardest part for me is picking which objective bonus to take when I complete an objective tile, and that bumps it up to a 4.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I also had it down as a 4. I mean, for me, it's borderline of 5, right? The only reason why I'm not giving it a full 5 is that it does become more achievable once you understand how to chain the reactions through stamps and campsites. And I feel like those are an easy part of the game to overlook because they almost feel exiled down to that lower right-hand corner of your player board. But once you realize the benefits they can provide you, the game gets easier. So yeah, I agree. It's a 4.
Absolutely.
So then strategy,
Okay.
how much opportunity is there for strategy and long-term planning on the same scale 1 to 5? Paul?
You already talked about how you start planning during the draft.
You do, yes.
I mean, it's almost Settlers of Catan-like, where you're looking at everything and you're trying to chart the best path that gives you the most flexibility. And so a lot of that analysis paralysis is just right in the beginning. That said, a lot of curveballs happen. People get in your way. And so I'm giving this a 4.
Okay.
Well, I gave it a 3, and I think you're right. A lot of the strategy that you come up with, the long-term planning, involves in selecting the crewmen. And along the way, there's a lot of choices involved in both selecting objectives and when you complete the objectives, which one you choose. But that feels very tactical to me past the opening draft. Everything else seems fairly tactical to me. So I backed it down to 3 because the strategy is with the crew and what waxes you give the crews. But after that, there's a lot of reaction going on.
Right. I think you hit it exactly, Al, because if you're planning on using a lot of seals, a lot of the waxes, then I think it is a 3, just because you're going to have more flexibility. If that academy action is not a big portion of your strategy, then I think strategy starts getting harder because you have to stick to a narrow focus or a more narrow focus and be more regimented in following it. And that requires more strategy to execute. So on this one, it really boils down to how flexible you think your crew members are going to be. And if you're planning on not having them be very flexible, then it's a 4. If they're going to be more open-ended as far as you're planning on completing 2 or all 3 of them, strategy is probably a 3 because you're going to have more options to take.
Way to split the baby, Todd.
I know I had to.
I think you hit the nail on the head.
I've never been so conflicted on a score yet in 40 episodes of this podcast as I was on that particular one.
Yeah, I had to think long and hard about whether it was a 3 or a 4. So
yeah. So then luck, how much do you think luck plays a factor? Same scale 1 to 5.
I don't think it plays much of a factor at all. I mean, you can't really say what crew members you get at the beginning is luck since you're drafting. I mean, I suppose there's some luck there, but I'm going to say it's a 1. I feel like everything in this.
What about the seals, Al?
Right.
But you can pay to mitigate that. You can choose stuff to mitigate that. I think players get in each other's way regardless of how many seals are there or not. So I don't know if there's a whole lot of luck to it. I'm lucky because I go first and there's 1 red seal. Okay, that's about it, in my opinion.
So I have it down as a 2, and I had specifically the market for the seals, but also when objectives come out, because sometimes an objective is going to come out that you've already completed. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. So I feel like that's lucky.
I can be talked into it too.
That is. I mean, other players can fight you for it.
Sure.
But I also give this a 2, primarily for the crew cards. I honestly don't like the draft in the beginning.
Oh, okay.
And then the wax seal market.
Okay. Let's put a pin in that, or we can talk about house rules now.
Well, about the wax seal market, the last game we played,
right,
I had set myself up with a crewman bonus and 2 objectives, and all I had to do to complete all 3 was get a second seal of the color I was missing. I already forgot the color. I think it was red. And I could not get that until round 4. I was pulling my hair out.
Right.
Asking myself, where are all the red seals? Oh, Al took them. Oh, Todd took them.
Right.
So I had at least some success in that game. I didn't win, but I had some fun at it.
Which tells me accomplishing that goal wasn't important enough for you to take turn order and guarantee that you would have had first crack at the seal market.
I kept crossing my fingers. I'm like, okay, there's going to be 7 more seals come out. Some of them have to be red. It's like, here's 1 more red.
So you're relying on luck in a game that doesn't have a lot of luck.
I was gambling. That's right.
So I think it earns the 2 rating here. So theme. How much do we think the theme has been integrated with this one? Paul?
I really like the theme. It's the first thing that drew me in, and despite the long playtime of our first game and the false start that we had. That was horrible.
Right.
The theme is what drew me back in. So I give this a 4.
Wow. Okay. I give it a 3 because what holds me back are the lenses, which are an important part. And they don't seem to be informed by the theme other than, sure, you need a crew member with enough experience to be able to do that action, but not the first time. The first time when I buy it, it's just money.
You're investing in the tools and equipment, but yes, it's fine.
So I'm paying someone to demonstrate the tool to me and I'm getting the benefit of their demonstration. Okay. Maybe.
Stretch.
How about you, Al? How'd you have it?
For theme, I've got it as a 3. I think I noticed something that kind of irked me in our first game, and that was the dollars. That you have to pay extra dollars to do the same thing somebody else did. That makes zero sense from a theme standpoint. It's such an integral part of the game. I don't know if they just phoned that one in, or whether or not they just couldn't come up with like a better way of making that happen. But me walking on an island cost me $2 more since you've already walked on the island. I don't know. I don't get that part, and that bothers me probably the most about this game.
So if I'm going to stretch more, I think it represents our limited supplies because we're all part of the same convoy. So the first person to do it uses up a bunch of supplies, and then if you want to do it too, you got to buy more.
Where would I buy it from? The dolphins that are floating along with us?
It crumbles apart.
I get it. I mean, it's such a huge integral part of this game. The lack of money is kind of the overall driver of what you can do.
It's the source of tension.
It just doesn't make. It seems like a false. It doesn't make a 100% with the theme. Other than that, the theme is amazing. I agree with Paul from an overall standpoint. I like the idea of Darwin's journey. I like the idea. I think it was pretty well implemented throughout the game with, that one piece. So I gave it a 3. Sorry for the long-winded explanation.
No. It's all good. All good. Favorite player count. What is your favorite player count for this game? Paul?
I often say the highest player count, but this time I'm going to say it's 3 players, and I think that's solely because I hated being seal shorted during our 4-player game.
And he's not bitter at all.
Right? I agree with you at 3-player, and that also has to do with delivering specimens to the museum as there's less competition for those row bounties. So it's easier to get early money at 3-player, and I don't feel like you're as tightly constrained as a 4-player game.
I said 3 as well. I think 3 is strong. I like 4 because you don't have to pay the extra $2 if you want to float your boat and you want to walk on an island. I like the fact that those are separated in a 4-player game, but 3 is pretty strong. I'm not going to lie. And you know what? I was okay with a 2-player game. I felt 2-player was a pretty fun game as well. So I'm okay with 2 to 4. I haven't done a solo yet, but I think 3 is probably the strongest of the ones.
All right. So then does that make 1 your least favorite player count without having tried it?
I would say yes, because I haven't tried it. So I don't know if it's my favorite or not favorite. But 4 slows things down a bit. So I would actually like to have the 4-player board with the 3 players.
Right? Take away
less interaction.
How about you, Paul? Least favorite player count?
I mean, if we don't count solo, I think I would say I like 2-player less than 4.
Right. I'm with you on that one. And I'm not saying it's a bad game. So least favorite means, if you could play with a different count, you would, but it doesn't mean you don't like the game. So it's still a good game at 2-player. So actual playing time, boxes can lie. What's your thought about the playing time for this? And the box indicates essentially 30 minutes per player, right? 60 to 120 minutes for 1 to 4 players. So what are your thoughts about the
seems
playing
dead
time?
On to me. 30 minutes per player, it seems perfect.
So our last play was just over 2 hours at 4 players. So we are almost to the 30 minutes per player
What about
box.
the 3-player games?
I am checking.
I think when we were looking at it last time, all the games were right at 30 minutes per player, which I think is a good number.
It's an hour 56 minutes.
with Dave and you? Dave and I?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Maybe we're chatty and enjoying our wine too much. I don't know.
We might have been. We might have been. 30 minutes per player unless there's wine.
I I had us close to about 40 minutes per player, but okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
the more you play, the faster you get, for sure.
Right? I agree. I think that the 30 minutes per player guideline is achievable, even if we're not quite there yet or otherwise distracting ourselves to not being as efficient as we could. So normally we would talk about which edition of the game is the best, since there's really only one version that's available as far as physical copies. Let's take this opportunity to talk about the online implementation. And Paul, I think you've got the most experience with it, so I'm going to yield the floor to you.
I've been really impressed by it. I think it's still in beta at this time, and I have not encountered any issues with it. One of the things it actually improves upon in the game, maybe a house rule, if you will, is every player has several wooden cubes of their color that go into the university whenever they collect a specimen. So it is super easy to see who has what specimens by looking at a single point on the common board.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a good
Instead
idea.
of having to evaluate their individual board to see who's collected which tiles.
Instead of trying to look at every single player's player board and noticing which one has a transparent bead on it.
Right.
It's very difficult.
And you actually implemented something similar, right? When the last time we played, I remember you had pulled, what was it? The
Great
discs
Western
out of
Trail.
Great Western Trail, yeah.
The discs and houses, yeah. I found it very, very helpful.
I liked it.
Okay. So then expansions, now there are some, I have zero experience with any of them. Most of them are promos, but there actually has been at least one, let's call it full box expansion.
Fireland, yeah.
And that would be the Fireland expansion, right? Do you have any thoughts about the expansion materials?
So I believe it just replaces the islands map, or does it add on to them? I'm not sure.
Well, there's some mini additions, expansions, if you will, in it as well. I mean, I looked through the Fireland expansions on TTS, Tabletop Simulator, quite a bit to see, what that was like. I think the pets mini expansion seems like kind of a prelude sort of thing where it kind of gives you an extra power sometime during the game, which is kind of cool. Especially if you have maybe like a new player or something, it would be kind of a cool thing. But looking at the reviews for Fireland, everybody I looked at or listened to said the Fireland experience is much greater than the base game. So I was kind of excited to at some point to actually play the Fireland expansion.
So by greater, you mean it's a better experience?
A better experience. Some people were like giving it a 7 or an 8, and they moved it up a full point to an 8 or a 9. So they definitely enjoyed the expansion significantly more than the base game. So I personally have not had a chance to play it. I fooled around with it with DTS, but without somebody kicking my butt and during the process, I can't really judge value.
Got it. Yeah, it adds a bunch of things. It has more crew members. It adds ocean and land adventure cards. It has a new map board. The adventure cards correspond to a new scoring track based on the number of adventures that you've completed. It does a lot of things. So all around, it's offering more.
More.
Right.
Pets sound pretty good.
Yeah, it seems fun.
Most recognizable comparison. What is the highest ranking game that is the most like Darwin's Journey for you? And this is going to be an interesting discussion, I think. Al, what did you have?
I have Great Western Trails. It has the Great Western Trails feel to me. Your different directions of going with the cowboys or the cows and stuff like that. That's what immediately comes to mind to me was the Great Western Trails connection.
Yeah, I can see that. And clearly, we're playing with the cowboys when we're playing. No, I'm kidding. we're using some of the same components from Great Western Trail when we play Paul's copy of Darwin's Journey. Paul, what do you have? I think you and I might conflict here. I'm looking forward to this.
No, I have the same thing as Al.
Oh.
From day one, this has reminded me of Great Western Trail. With the path dependency, the fact that instead of adding buildings to the board, you're adding lenses to the board. Instead of building your deck, you're building your knowledge with the wax seals. Great Western Trail is a slam dunk comparison, in my opinion.
Wow. Okay. Well, then I zagged. I chose Hansa Teutonica. Because you have multiple tracks to advance on. You're still competing for places on the board, and there are even seals. There are even waxes that are an important part of the scoring here. So less recognizable comparison. So a game where, typically we try for a game outside of the top 750. That was difficult, but I managed to find one. How did you guys do?
Horribly.
I zagged.
Yeah? What was your zag?
I just went for theme.
Yes.
And there is a Kickstarter game that came out in 2019 called On the Origin of Species. And it's basically just the exploration board and the university. And as you are collecting specimens and discovering new ones, you're gaining points along the way. So it is a very much more focused game. You can either research or collect. Those are your only two actions, but the way you can do them expands as you play along. And it has a HMS Beagle that sails through the board as well.
Okay, that's awesome.
Well, I failed pretty miserably. I said Terra Mystica. Terra Mystica is still very high up in the board game ranking system. I think it's like a 30 or something.
Wait. Did I skip over you for most recognizable comparison?
No, he said Great Western Trail.
Yeah,
He did.
yeah.
Okay.
So I said it's outside this.
All right,
it's inside the 750. So I failed miserably. But the other game that this reminds me of is I feel it has the same feel with the track along the side, trying to move your pieces up that track, as well as picking places in the game to go and to interact or block your opponent. So I wish I had a better answer, but you guys are more creative than I am, I think.
So most recognizable was ranked 16 overall, and less recognizable was ranked 30.
Yeah,
got it.
I doubled it. I doubled it.
Way to go, Al.
Hey, those are two great games. So if it reminds you of both of those, it's a good combination. Paul, you might remember we have played a game called The Search for Planet X.
Yes, of course.
Right? There was a re-implementation of that last year called The Search for Lost Species, which adds an overall theme of searching for the location of specimens and species that are believed to have gone extinct. And you are focusing specifically on the Indonesian, Australasian region. And there are even assistants that can help you get lore to find, where these species exist. And then you're doing the app thing to eventually find a specimen. Again, I was also kind of riffing off of theme for this one, but The Search for Lost Species is my pick.
Cool.
All right, house rules. How would you improve the game? And Paul, I think you've already mentioned the use of the markers that you can see in the museum who has collected which specimens. Do you have any thoughts on improving that starting draft?
Yes.
What are they?
Well, thank you for asking. Instead of receiving 4 cards and then passing and drafting 3 of them, I think it would be a lot better to put 3 cards per player face up on the table and then do a draft of people picking one at a time. And you could even hinge it so whoever picks last gets 2 in a row. And that would inform everybody of all the possible crewmen, make it much more strategic, which I think does nothing but help the game.
That is a good idea.
I like it. So like if I'm staring at green, blue in my hand and I decide, well, I'm going to take the blue one, I may not realize that I don't have another opportunity to get a green card.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. I like that a lot. I didn't have anything else to add. Did you, Al?
I say we play that Paul gets no crewmen at all.
Okay. I like this. Yes.
Yeah. Is that a handicap?
Yeah, it'd just be a handicap. Tie one hand behind your back or something.
If this game is being played at game night, then what do you want to play afterwards? What's the best double feature game that you'd want to play with Darwin's Journey? Paul?
I had a lot of trouble with this, and I just went based on time period, I guess. Mm-hmm. I want to play Anno 1800 afterwards, and I'm not sure why. I'm sorry.
Well, no, that's fine. How about you, Al?
I didn't have a good idea here. I would say we just reload and play it twice.
Nice. That's how I used to answer.
It didn't. I mean, it's almost like the more times you play, the better you get at it. So instead of playing it once every couple of months, let's play it twice in one evening, just because we're already in the zone by that point.
High five.
I know, right? That's usually Paul's answer. I mean, I would go ahead and say, Al, though, especially with the 3 of us, if you're ever in a rough patch trying to think of what's the best game to follow this, Dune Imperium is always a good answer.
Or Terraforming Mars. Yeah.
I'll never say no to
that. for absolutely no reason whatsoever with this game, Terraforming Mars or Dune Imperium.
Yeah, there you go. There's a game out there that came out the same year that's called In the Footsteps of Darwin. And it's like they took they lifted the museum out of this game and they implemented a tile selection mechanism similar to like Mr. Jack Pocket or maybe even Targi, where you are going around the edge and then you can choose one of the tiles that's out of the row that you're in, and it's a set collection game. So it's got the same theme. It's a much lighter game. It's about set collection and point scoring, but I think it would be a nice aperitif or digestif, I guess, to Darwin's Journey. So what feature of the game still stands out to you? What has aged the best of this game that has been out for an entire year?
Well, for me, I think the thing I like the most, honestly, about this, the mechanic I like the most, if you will, is upgrading your crew. I think getting the waxies and putting them on the crew and kind of building your own flexibility or your own crew engine, that just is the biggest thing that draws me to this game, honestly. And I don't know, it's almost like it's a tech tree. It's got your own little built-in tech tree, but instead of creating technology, you're giving your crew things to do, better things to do. And that, to me, I just love that concept myself, updating the crew technology.
I agree completely. That's exactly what I had, was developing the crew's ability, especially when you're targeting specific actions that you want them to be able to do. What did you have, Paul?
I half agree, because that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is you have to have actions to go to with your upgraded crewmen. So the lenses, I think the lenses plus the wax seal selection are two sides of the same coin.
Got it.
So riddle me this, Paul. If the game came with all the lenses already on the game, it would be the same, right? You can't go to these places until they're
that would make the game all about the wax seals. Whereas with the lens mechanism as it is, you don't have to focus solely on getting wax seals. There's other ways to accomplish your goals.
Mm.
All right. So what feature of the game now disappoints? What may not have aged as well? And I'll just say, there are too many things to do in this game, which is only possible if you are chaining actions. So it has some of that action explosion that we've talked about in the past, where the later on you get in the game, the more things start chaining, the longer turns take. So that's the feature that I'm not real thrilled with. What did you guys have? Same
thing. More specifically, that one really, really, really long turn. I hate it.
It's great async, though, right?
It's fine async, yes.
How about you, Al?
Well, I would say, honestly, it goes along with what you guys are saying, but it kind of expands it a little bit. I would say the worst feature of this game is the ability to take analysis paralysis to a whole new level. Fortunately, I don't think we've done that. We've done that too badly in the past, but I can certainly see somebody just becoming, deer in headlights, sort of shell-shocked with it very easily. And that goes back to your async versus playing live. So I would say is the worst feature. Also, did I mention the paying the $1 or the $2 to go where somebody else has gone? I hate that.
Got it. Well, it's so thematic, though. Paying those dolphins. Yeah.
That's right.
So did this game replace a previous one for you? And I'm going to steal Paul's answer. I'm just going to straight up steal it right now, because nothing was really standing on this corner before we started playing Darwin's Journey. So I just had to think of a game that was comparable in complexity that we no longer play, and that'd be Carnegie. What did you have, Paul?
I mean, I have not played Great Western Trail since we started playing Darwin's Journey.
Oh, my.
Except online. I mean, I still play Great Western Trail online, but it has temporarily replaced Great Western Trail.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to last. I will definitely be playing Great Western Trail in the future, but for now.
Way to steal mine there, Paul. I also had Great Western Trails. I felt that this game ticks every box that I have with Great Western Trails and then some. So to me, this replaced Great Western Trails.
All right. So has this game since been replaced? And if so, by what?
Your heart, Todd, your heart.
I know.
I mean, how could this game be replaced already? Come on.
So for you, it's a no.
I have no answer.
Okay.
It may well be Great Western Trail in the future.
Well, how about either one of the newly released versions?
Yeah, like New Zealand. I mean, I
Right.
definitely need to play that more.
Okay. But Al, do you have, has Darwin's Journey been replaced by anything for you?
I think it's too new for me. I kind of came late to the game. Yeah, I know you guys played it, several months ago, and I've only played it in the last, say, 2 months. But we've got several games together. I've done some bunch of stuff on DTS. It has not been replaced to me. I guess I'm kind of curious, Todd, about you have said that you don't care for it as much because of some of the things that the decisions it makes. But to me, this seems like the perfect game for you. There's plenty of spots for tokening. There's high competition and going in different places. This seems like, to me, based on what I know from you, this would be right in your sweet spot.
And yet,
And yet you're not as excited about it as some of us. Well, I guess the
Right.
two of us.
yeah, I mean, we'll get to that in rating. This one has been opaque to me for a while, and only now, after we played it, I don't know, 5, 6 times, do I start to even see what I could be doing to improve my game. And that was really frustrating for a while, where I felt like I was doing the things to upgrade my crew, getting better actions, and still scoring dismally. So I'm willing to invest some time before I start liking a game, but this one, it's requiring a much greater effort. And unfortunately, we don't play the same game over and over and over and over again. So it's got to make a mark in the first 3 to 5 plays to be well liked.
Okay.
So as far as has it been replaced, so both of you say no, like I want it to be replaced right now. And and the one I would nominate for that would be Kutna, the City of Silver, which has a similar set of tracks that you advance along that are all interwoven, whether it be your mining developments or the plots on the Kutna Aura board or the buildings that you're developed that are helping you increase your engine or your economy. I mean, it's got a lot of interwoven details that I like better than I liked Darwin's Journey.
Cool.
So soundtrack, what music would you want to listen to while playing this game? And I will caveat this by saying there was actually an official soundtrack that was released with the game.
Yeah, I mean, how can you recommend something else? I couldn't.
Right? The sad part is I didn't even know that was a thing until I was researching my answer for this question. Have you listened to it already?
A few tracks, yes. It's well done.
Okay. Do you feel it fits the theme of the game well? Would it enhance the atmosphere?
Yeah, and once I started listening to it, I just said, why even spend time trying to look for something else?
Fair. Al, how about you? Did you have a custom playlist for this one?
I did not custom playlist this one. I had, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know about the included soundtrack, but ever since the beginning, first time I played this, I had this symphony in the back of my mind. It's called Liszt's Forest Murmurs.
Okay.
Is Walderfunction or something like that. It's in German, but I think it's very appropriate for this sort of
Nice.
game. It's got the flowing tones and the feeling of exploration and stuff like that. So that's where I'm at with this one.
So that's List with a Z, right? Liszt.
Yes, LASDT, correct. Forest Murmurs or Walderfunction.
I'm going to let you try to say that. I'm not even going to give it a shot. All right, so rating. On Board Game Geek scale of 1 to 10 now, how would you rate the game? I'm going to go ahead and jump in because I think I've got the lowest score. So we'll end on a high note. Right now I have it as a 6. I'm starting to warm up to it, and I could see it getting a higher rating with more plays, but because it has been opaque to me for quite a while, for me, it's a 6. It's just one of those games where I feel like I'm beating my head against the wall and just not making a lot of progress. But Al, how about you? How do you rate the game?
I got it as a 9. I really like this game. I really like the choices. I really like the upgrading your crew. I always like a good tech tree, and I think this is a very unique way to implement a tech tree. The amount of decisions that you have to make keep it interesting and keep it replayable.
Yep. There's definitely a lot of variability that goes into this game, so it can have a replayability from that viewpoint. How about you, Paul? How did you rate the game?
Yeah, right now, this game rates an 8 for me. I like it a lot.
Nice. So then, is it replayable, and how soon would you want to revisit the game?
Since I voted it higher and actually just said it was replayable, I think I would be really excited to try the expansion,
Mm-hmm.
and I would really like to see how the expansion changes, if it changes your mind in any way, Todd.
Right. I think once I get a better grasp of the base game chaining requirements, so focusing more on tense and letters, and then allowing that to inform the rest of my game, that once I have that down better, yeah, I'd be interested in looking at the expansion, especially the adventure tracks. How about you, Paul?
It is absolutely replayable, and it will continue to be until it gets replaced. If it ever does. I don't know, because, yeah, I'm excited to try any expansion that anybody compares to Terraforming Mars Prelude.
Yeah, right? That's almost catnip for us. Oh, it's like Prelude? You got to give that one a shot.
Well, it gives you an extra special action. It's almost like a free objective bonus, and I thought that was pretty good.
So, Paul, straight out of left field comparison here, because right now I believe you are the only one that has the copies of these two games. How do you feel this game compares to Obsession?
Obsession has a lot more luck and a lot more theme, but I would say Darwin's Journeys has a lot more decisions and better decisions.
Wow. Okay. But they both have worker placement with different workers, which is an interesting mechanic that, Al and I have both said that we've enjoyed, being able to build up the workers. But in Obsession, you're just hiring them.
Yeah, and I am waiting with bated breath for my character expansion
right?
Obsession to arrive.
When's that going to show up?
I was promised this year, but yeah, it depends on all the import bureaucracies.
Got it. Okay. And with that, the fifth round of this game is mercifully over. In our next episode, we'll explore World of Dragons through careful planning and discovery. So thanks for being available this afternoon, guys. This was a tough game to get through and try to describe because it is just so interwoven with so many different components.
Yeah, you did an excessive amount of what's the word? Exposition.
Sorry.
No, it's good.
This is the episode where Todd talks about Darwin's journey.
But like you said, you had to, because there's just so many different aspects to the game.
Right. All right, guys.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Al.
Appreciate it, Todd.
Thank you for listening to Replayable. Support for our podcast comes from listeners like you. Please subscribe, hit that like button, and leave a review wherever you listen to us. Thank you for your support. Come and talk about board games with us at replayable.fm or on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook as ReplayableFM. You can also join our team at patreon.com/replayable. We welcome your feedback, which is the only way that we are going to get better. You can get in touch with us via email at feedback@replayable.fm. And if you're interested in sponsoring us, then please contact us at sponsors@replayable.fm.